If you watch the State of the Union address and were paying attention to what he said about the oil and gas, the fossil fuel industry, and you didn't laugh, let me explain to you why it was ridiculous. Okay, I'm Sean Pruitt, president of Kingdom Exploration. If you like this channel, please subscribe. I'll talk about the fossil fuel industry, oil and gas prices, and any relevant news. Okay, and so here's the deal. If you don't realize, we are in an energy crisis. Fossil fuels is the number one contributor to high cost of living, inflation, and everything else. Just before the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, oil prices hit $190 a barrel based on today's dollars. If today oil prices hit $190 oil, it would crash our economy in a very short time. And that's exactly what happened in 2009. Now, here's the deal. If you look at what's happening right now, this is a chart from 2011 to 2021. We have consumed 320 billion barrels of oil and discovered 76 billion barrels of oil. That means for every barrel of oil we discover, we are consuming 4. Listen, if you had a savings account of $1 million and you made $250,000 a year, but you spent $1 million a year, how long until that $1 million would be gone? See, we are consuming much more oil than we are discovering. It's that simple. Why do you think the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is the lowest level it's ever been, following a pandemic that reduced oil demand to the lowest ever? Now, here's the deal. We have to give credit where credit's due. OPEC has done a good job at maintaining oil prices. They have admitted to the fact in 2008, 2009, during the financial crisis, with oil prices going from 190 dropping down to 40, that fast increase and decline, they're getting a lot better at preventing that volatility. Okay. And so they are decreasing the amount of oil on the markets when oil prices get too low, and they are increasing even more when oil prices get too high. And that keeps stability in the markets. Okay. And so if oil prices go too low, that reduces the amount of oil investment. It also reduces the amount of oil development, and thus causing a rapid decline in production. Then all of a sudden you have a knee-jerk reaction. It goes the opposite direction. Now you don't have enough production, and then you have an increase in demand. And all of a sudden, because things are cheaper and people are driving even more, then all of a sudden the demand goes through the roof, and then all of a sudden you see oil prices hit $130, $140 a barrel. Now, they're getting much better at handling that. Okay. The Jerome Powell is doing a good job with handling inflation. They increased the interest rate hikes, and see, it's actually doing much better than everyone expected. Okay. But the root cause of inflation is oil supply. If we had a ton of oil supply, eggs would not be the price they are today. Housing markets would be much cheaper. I mean, everything you buy from Amazon is affected by oil. It's affected by fossil fuels. Okay. And so what Joe said to the world, listen, and he went off script. I guarantee Joe's handlers fell out of their seats when Joe went off script and started talking about the oil and gas industry. And he simply was trying to get the fossil fuel industry to trust him again. Hey guys, we still need you. We still need fossil fuels for about 10 years. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, the demand for fossil fuel has been growing since 300 AD. We have been using fossil fuels longer than Joe has been around, and the demand has been growing in every country. A third of the world is not even using fossil fuels. They're burning wood. They're using dung, and there's another 3 billion people that use the amount of electricity as a refrigerator. A mass majority of the world doesn't even use fossil fuels, and they're starting to wake up to the idea of using it. And when that happens, there's there's not going to be enough fossil fuels out there. Okay. I'm going to read a few articles here. Goldman Sachs warns of imminent oil supply shortage. Okay. Crude oil could soon swing into a deficit that will make next year a difficult one. Goldman Sachs said as a spare production capacity dwindles and underinvestment threatens future supply, speaking on the sidelines of an event in Saudi Arabia, Goldman's top commodity analyst Jeff Currie said, as quoted by Bloomberg, that the industry is not spending enough to secure future production and that spare capacity globally is declining. This could tip the oil market into a serious supply problem next year, but the price for a barrel of Brent could top 100 before then. According to Currie, rising demand from China and sanctions on Russian oil will contribute to the deficit, which he expects to manifest in the second quarter of this year. In response, producers will tap their spare capacity, leaving it lower than it was before. Eventually, this will lead to a serious imbalance between supply and demand. Right now, we are still balanced to a surplus because China has still yet to fully rebound. Now, this is so key. All right. So we still have a surplus because China has yet to fully rebound. But the EIA, the Energy Information Administration, and various outlets are saying oil prices have dropped simply because we're seeing an increase in supply. Okay. Now that's just simply because China hasn't yet fully rebounded yet. Okay. So a lot of this news that is reducing the price of oil because of supply is simply it's a novelty. It's not going to last very long. Okay. Are we going to run out of spare production capacity? Potentially by 2024, you start to have a serious problem. Saudi Arabia's energy minister has echoed concern about insufficient spending on future oil production. In fact, Abdullah's bin Salam has been warning about that for more than a year, and he did so again this weekend. Okay. All of those so-called sanctions, embargoes, lack of investments, they will convolute into one thing and one thing only: a lack of energy supplies of all kinds when they are most needed, he said. Brent crude has been trading at $75 to $80 a barrel for most of the year so far, but Goldman, along with other investment banks, believes it has higher to go. According to Currie, the oil market will swing into deficit by May. Okay. And so right now oil prices are WTI crude is 77.68. Brent crude is 84. Now, the only reason why oil prices are this low, and when I say low, $78 a barrel is not super low. Okay. Because under the Trump administration, we averaged about $55 a barrel. But since 2008, we've averaged about $90 something a barrel. Okay. Now, 78 in comparison is pretty low. Now, here's the deal. When you reduce the amount of capital by when you increase the interest rate hikes, it makes it more money to borrow money. It costs more money to borrow money. Okay. Reducing the amount of money. And so they couldn't chase the commodity rally. If you have less capital to invest in oil, it reduces the volume of oil trades, reducing the price of oil. It is purely a financial thing. It's a financial instrument. If it was based upon fundamentals, then oil prices would be much higher, but it's purely speculative. It's futures. It's a large instrument of financial analysis and people investing and buying and selling. Okay. So it's all manipulated. All right. Oil surges over 3% as Fed's Powell eases rate hike concerns. Okay. Oil prices climbed more than 3% on Tuesday after the head of the U.S. Central Bank eased market concerns over interest rate hikes, while recovering demand in China also boosted prices. Okay. So it looks like we're going to have a softer landing than anticipated. And that's what a lot of analysts are agreeing to. Okay. Biden goes off script to concede oil demand will last for years. I've already talked about that, and the whole world is talking about it. I mean, you got to think about this for a second. So Joe Biden goes off script about this whole, we still need you for the next 10 years. Okay. When he has many, many times publicly gone on record and say, listen, fossil fuel, no more. He's ending the fossil fuel industry. He's ending the oil drilling development realm. He's bringing it to an end. And oh, by the way, green energy is going to fix everything. For him to turn 180 degrees and say we still need fossil fuel is admitting to the fact that he was wrong. Okay, so if he was wrong about fossil fuels, he must be wrong about green energy, and he must be wrong about global warming. I mean, because you can't be that wrong about something and not be ignorant about something else. I'm here to tell you that fossil fuels is the most important energy this world has ever discovered, and it is the cheapest, most abundant energy that have ever existed. But we are using more oil than we are discovering right now. Okay. And so we drilled like crazy when it came to the conventional oil in the 20s all the way to the early 2000s. We ran out of conventional. Then we moved offshore. Then we ran out of offshore. So we moved into shale. Shale accounted for 80% of the world's oil growth. Well, shale is dead. Now what? Because, I mean, we spent so much money because you got the big oil companies. They became so efficient at developing oil and gas. Wells that would take decades, now they could get it done in days. There was a time in the area that we're drilling, it would take months to just drill down 2,000 feet. Now we could do it in 2 days. They've gotten incredibly efficient. And then we have a printing press, the ability to print as much money as we want. And we drilled out areas that would have taken decades in a matter of weeks. And now all of our tier one assets are gone. The tier one assets, we spent billions of dollars in the tier one assets, the low hanging fruit, it's all gone. Now we have to print twice as much money to produce as much oil as we did in the heydays of Donald Trump. But the thing is, they're not printing any more money for that because of the global warming cult. And there's many banks that are going on public saying, hey, we're reducing our fossil fuel investment by 80%. And they're proud of it because it's almost like peer pressure in high school to have sex or to use drugs or to drink alcohol or smoke. I mean, there's peer pressure amongst the leaders to reduce their fossil fuel demand. And the head of the leader of the free world is reducing fossil fuel production, and he's pushing the rest of the world, bullying them into doing the same, following suit. Okay. And so it's a mess, guys. We need more fossil fuels. It's really sad. India predicts 500% increase in domestic natural gas demand. India Prime Minister Modi on Monday projected that the country's gas demand would rise 500% due to the rapid pace of development, while its share of global oil demand would more than double. So India's natural gas demand is going to increase 5 times and oil demand double and increase. Listen, they spent trillions and trillions of dollars on green energy, and didn't even put a dent in oil. In fact, oil demand increase. We're going to see an increase of oil. We're going to see levels of oil demand by the end of this year of over 103 million barrel a day demand. And the highest we've ever been is 99 point something million barrel a day demand. Listen, oil demand is growing. And you think about how much they have done to try to reduce the demand for fossil fuels. They have condemned, they have passed laws, they have spent $5 trillion on green energy, reducing fossil fuel demand by 2%, all the while oil demand has grown. They're trying everything they can, and they can't even do that. They can't reduce the demand for oil. Here's several articles I'm reading. Oil retreats on EIA inventory data. Okay, so the Energy Information Administration, I truly believe that they don't work for Americans. They work for the government. And so they're funded by the government. And I feel like they put out data that counters the price of oil. It's all a part of that whole, they're using artificial ways to reduce the price of oil versus using simply increasing oil output. I mean, oil prices are priced in supply and demand. The higher the supply and the less demand, the lower the oil price. Okay. And so the only way to reduce the oil price is increasing the oil supply. They're doing everything but that. They're reducing oil supply. They're reducing the amount of capital available to invest in the fossil fuel itself, reducing the future price. They're trying to reduce demand by reducing, putting these COVID lockdowns and all these restrictions. I mean, China has reduced demand by 2 million barrels a day simply because of these COVID lockdowns. What's going to happen when they when all those COVID restrictions come off? Okay. And so we're coming off some of the biggest COVID restrictions this world has ever seen, and demand is starting to really come back strong. Okay. And so this EIA inventory data is simply because we have some extra oil barrels of oil on the market, simply because China hasn't come online yet, but all those oil barrels are going to be gone once they come online. So there's a lot of happening in Iran right now. Iran reveals an underground Air Force base, IRNA says. Okay. And so Iran on Tuesday revealed an underground Air Force base called Eagle 44, and the first of its kind, large enough to house fighter jets, the official IRNA news agency said. The Eagle 44 base is capable of storing and operating fighter jets and drones. IRNA said the report did not elaborate on the location of the base, was the country's most important Air Force base built underground. Okay. And so any attack on Iran from our enemies, including Israel, will see a response from our many Air Force bases, including Eagle 44, Iran's armed forces chief of staff. So Iran now has a base in Russia. Iran has in Russia have joined forces. Okay. And so when you join forces with a country and you become allies, your enemies, you share the same enemies. Okay. Now here's the deal. Saudi Arabia and Iran have been at war in Yemen and Syria for years. Okay. And I guarantee you that as Iran grows in military power, because Iran is learning a tremendous amount from Putin. And Putin is in a desperate situation. I mean, the world's coming against Putin. Putin's making the biggest threats I've ever seen, I've ever heard. I mean, the recently, I think it was UK is giving jets, supplying jets to Ukraine. I think it was the UK. But anyways, Putin has upped his rhetoric, and he's becoming even more desperate, and desperation calls for desperate measures. And he's joining forces with Iran. Iran and Putin have come together. They're building drones together, and Iran is sharing their expertise when it comes to drones, and Putin is sharing his expertise when it comes to missiles. I mean, nobody knows more about missiles and nuclear bombs than Putin himself and his team. Okay. So together they become a powerhouse. I mean, Iran has the ability to send a drone over 1,000 miles. That means every single oil well in Saudi Arabia is a sitting duck. If you combine the experience of Iran, the ability to design drones that could go over 1,000 miles undetected, with the superior force of Putin's nukes, you have a force that cannot be dealt with. You cannot compete with that. Okay. And so I think I foresee this being a very dangerous game of roulette. Do I think that Putin is going to use nuclear weapons? I think that I can't imagine that Putin would just come out and drop a nuke and destroy half of an entire country. Okay. He'd be a sitting duck. I mean, the whole world would come against him. Okay. It could happen. All right. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it's not going to, but simply there are smaller nuclear weapons that is small enough to not destroy an entire country, but can make a huge impact. I mean, now we're changing the pace of this war, and he's getting into a desperate situation, but he does not have the drone technology to deliver the payload. Okay. But with Iran, with the help of Iran, he can. But Iran, they're crazy. The same guys, the same mindset that caused people to take an airplane in the name of Allah and crashed into a building and in their lives, those are the same people that are willing those are the same people that have drone technology that could drop bombs in Israel, that could drop bombs in Saudi Arabia. So here's the deal. If they have access to nuclear weapons, which now they do, okay, there's a lot of concern that they are using their uranium to make nuclear facilities and to make nuclear bombs. That is a concern. But Putin has nuclear bombs. He has nuclear weapons, and he's been producing them for much longer. Them together is a lethal force, okay? I don't think for a second that Iran wouldn't be crazy enough to start dropping bombs on their enemies, because here's the deal. Putin's only power and chokehold on the West is not military weaponry. If push come to shove, America can destroy Putin 5 times over. We have the most powerful force in the world, and we have the money to print as many tanks, as many jets, as many aircraft carriers, and produce the most powerful military in the world. We have that kind of money where Putin can't. Okay, he's limited, okay, which is why he's forced to work with Iran, okay? But the only way they can compete was with oil. And the chokehold and the strangle that he put on Europe, he can do the same to the West, but not until fossil fuel, the energy of oil and natural gas, becomes less abundant. The only way to do that is to reduce the amount of fossil fuels that's being produced, natural gas and oil. Now, how do you do that? Okay. And there's only one way to do that. It's to take out the production. And Iran hates Saudi Arabia. Iran wants to take out Saudi Arabia. Okay. Now, if Saudi Arabia was to get taken out, that would put Putin in a powerful position where he could put the chokehold and the strangle on NATO, on Europe, on the West, on America, and he could win the war. He could win the war. And so Iran, and the thing is that Iran has been known to drop bombs on key oil facilities on Saudi Arabia. They are at war. Yes, it's a proxy through the Houthi rebels in Yemen and in Syria, but let's make no mistake, Saudi Arabia and Iran are at war. And Iran and Putin are allies. And now they are teaming up in Ukraine. They have teamed up in Syria. And now Iran has a base in Russia full of Iranian drones. Okay, you see where I'm going with this. Okay, and so Putin is scratching Iran's back. Iran is scratching Putin's back, and they're giving each other favors. All right, and so I wouldn't be surprised if Iran took one of Putin's nuclear bombs, warheads, and put that payload on 1,000 of Iranian drones and sent them to Saudi Arabia. It just takes one direct hit from a nuclear warhead to take out 25, 30%, half of Saudi Arabia's oil infrastructure. And we lose 5 million barrels a day of production overnight. That would put Putin in a powerful position. That would cause oil prices to go to $150 overnight, making Putin a very rich man, giving him the finances and the control and the power he needs to win this war in Ukraine. Without that, he's not going to win. That seems to be a major option. Okay, now obviously this is pure speculation, but it's some good speculation. It's kind of like what was on Pearl Harbor. He said, man, that's bullshit. That's some good bullshit. Anyways, I'm Sean Pruitt, president of Kingdom Exploration. If you like this channel, please subscribe. If you guys have any good articles, please comment below or send me an email. In my description below, my email address is in there. I'd love to hear from you guys what you think about what Putin's next step is. Where do you think oil prices are going to go? If you're in the fossil fuel patch, please say hello, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.